So we're hearing that they might be seeking a valuation of $10 billion or more. What does the timeline look like?
Yeah, so we're hearing that they're going to start taking orders as soon as Monday, October 2nd. They would be looking to price probably around a week or so later for trading on the 11th. So pricing on the 10th, trading on the 11th. That will be after the Columbus Day holiday here in the US. There is obviously a German holiday as well at some point next week. So they're sort of trying to, there are a few moving parts, but they're certainly quite bullish, it seems. We understood earlier on, maybe earlier this month, that they were looking for somewhere in the region of maybe 8. It looks as though they're pushing maybe $10 billion or more. So pretty bullish on its hopes. And I mean, it's just listening to the last item before we came on. The consumer, this is probably the first big test in terms of a consumer-facing IPO. We've had a series of 3 technology companies, all of which have been very sort of, let's say, enterprise-focused. It should be a good, it should give us a good read, I think, as to exactly where we're looking going into the end of the year.
How much is hinging on this offer, Ryan, and how does it, I guess, fit into the broader picture when it comes to other US listings that we've seen over the past few weeks?
I think it's one of those, as I say, which it could give us quite a different read on how investors are thinking about IPOs as an asset class, how constructive they are with IPOs. We've obviously seen Klaviyo being the best performer over the past 2 weeks. Arm and Instacart have sort of both slipped towards their issue prices. Instacart actually closed today below its $30 a share issue price. I think, obviously I want to caution and say that, this is sort of a bit of a precarious moment. Obviously we have the maybe a looming government shutdown. Should that, be the case, it could be the case that Birkenstock actually has to reevaluate its timeline and maybe look towards, perhaps shifting its expectations a few weeks in terms of pricing. Just because, as Gary Gensler, the SEC chair, said last week to a bunch of reporters that, the SEC could end up going down to a skeletal staff and therefore would not be in a position to sort of green light, so to speak, the registration statement that's required for a company to start trading.
You mentioned the U.S. government shutdown, the potential that could derail this listing. But of course, market sentiment also hasn't been great. Will that factor in?
For sure, I think, it's all wrapped up, right? Because if we do end up in a scenario where the government does shut down, obviously I think Birkenstock is hoping that that isn't the case. It could have a drawdown effect on how, how...
So why now then?
I think this has been in the offering for a while. There's clearly been enough, strong interest in the pre-roadshow meetings with investors to suggest that they could get, strong reception. It's certainly an evaluation that's sort of, up there pushing $10 billion. Let's not forget that, this is the maker of the iconic shoes we all see about town. This is a footwear company. It's 250 odd years old. It's a household name. People know it. And I think they're pretty excited to sort of get to grips as to what this company can offer in the public sphere.